but why all of a sudden is the government super transparent and talking about this all the time?
Well, I think there's, in their mind, there's something very dangerous happening with this phenomenon right now. And
Oh, wow.
it's not the dangerous part that they're telling us about, having the dangers in our airspace because of these things. They're trying to put that threat on us, that fear on us, that this is the government military side. If you listen to things that they're saying, everything they're pushing is they're dealing with a biological entity. Okay. They're saying they got the bodies, they got solid craft.
Yep.
They're saying that they're pushing the physical EBE from another world. Okay. And I believe they're doing this for a reason, because there's another camp where these civilian researchers like I said, the change came about 2008 when I first started seeing it, where they were starting to question, could this be something else? Well, now they're pretty sure it's something else, and that something else is either interdimensional, extra-dimensional, or, hyperdimensional, whatever they want to put a title to it. They just can't use the term spiritual realm, like we can. But they're trying to show that this is not biological entities. They have the ability to appear solid, but this can't split here, I think, is what got the government concerned, because these other researchers, they're right on the threshold of looking at this from a spiritual perspective. I mean, you do got Stephen Greer that's pushing the CE5 protocol. That is dealing with the spiritual being. Okay,
can you explain that to folks that don't know what that is? Because that's a big deal.
Yeah, it's that one is scary. He's pushing this. It is. He's pushing this protocol, the CE5 protocol that he keeps pushing out there, and it's the ability. He's teaching you the ability that we can have by doing the right things, like meditation, deep meditation, and opening your mind, and all of this stuff, just like the New Age wacky doodle, program, to be able to have contact with these beings. We don't need to wait for disclosure, is his concept. We already have the ability to reach out to these entities and commune with them. Okay? All you have to do is open your mind to allow them to communicate with you. Okay? That is, sorry to say, but that's spiritism. This is the same spiritism that hit this country back in the 1800s. It came from Europe, where everybody was doing the seances and calling in spirits and things like that. This is no different than that. These people have no concept. They don't even think about it. They just want the experience. They don't think about the hazards with this experience, or even what could happen. They're opening themselves up to some type of entity, a non-human entity that can access their mind. Okay? These are the same people that if you went and just showed up knocking on their door, they wouldn't let you in without some valid identity of who you are, right? But yet they don't test who they're opening their mind up to. This is actually a very dangerous thing. But people don't have a set faith or belief anymore. They're looking for that experience. They want the experience to govern their life, and they're all looking for that next experience. Sad to say, we got a lot of Christians doing the same thing. Instead of looking at relationship, they're looking for experience. That experience is not what Jesus was offering. He was offering a relationship, but the same thing we're doing here. These entities, they're counterfeiting that whole concept. They're saying that we're here to offer relationship. They want to commune with you. And that's the enticement that the CE5 protocol has. You can actually, in the CE5 protocol, he takes people for a lot of money and takes them to places where they can all sit around and do the meditation deal, the CE5, and call in the ships. Okay? And it's happening. People have been there to his place up in Kentucky, I believe it is, that they go out there and these things will show up. More like orbs is what they are, but they're actually showing up. And this is something that's quite fantastic for most people to be able to do that yourself. To be part of a group that can do that. That's seductive to people.
Oh, yeah.
People want to experience something, instead of experiencing a true relationship with Jesus Christ, they're open to anything but that, and that's the sad part. You don't even know what you're opening up to.
It's interesting that in this time in like human history, it seems like, government and spirituality is starting to somewhat like blend in a weird way through this narrative, through this alien agenda.
And I think that's what the government's trying to not let happen.
Really?
That's why we're seeing their focus mainly on the biological side. But they're trying to keep it that aspect to where it's nuts and bolts only. And because the problem is, and I think they see this, but my feeling on this is, and Tucker Carlson talked about this too on his interview with Joe Rogan, is they're afraid of the spirituality side because that's one that they can't control.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Dude, that's a good point, because I always thought that the government would want to I always thought that they would be a part of whatever is coming next through this agenda. Okay, because this is leading somewhere. Obviously, this is going somewhere. It's not just going to stop one day.
Yeah,
they're not going to put it back in.
They can't control the CE5. I mean, that's opened up to everybody. Once you introduce that out there, which Greer has done, now everybody has access to do this. And that's something that the government can't control.
Is that growing?
Yeah, it's growing.
Is there something about maybe summoning, like maybe the demonic wants or needs human or mankind to summon them, to allow them to come in, to ask them to come in into this reality?
Well, and one step further, we just talked about how, as a father, you're a representative of your household. What about the leaders of your country? Are they representatives of their people, spiritually speaking? Can they invite stuff over a country, over a territory? The prince of the power of the air of Persia, etc.
Sure.
Can we be going back, because of our leadership, can we be going back into the control of this, I don't know what, spiritual force can be over a territory? You know what I mean?
Oh, I have no doubt. That's why I think this is primarily focused on the group that I mentioned, modernized, westernized, Christianized white people. That's why I believe it's only focused on them, because the others out there that the focus is not heavily on is because they've already got something that's deceiving them. You don't need to deceive. Sense. You don't need to deceive the deceived.
The deceived,
okay?
Yeah.
You need to deceive the ones that aren't deceived or not yet deceived. That's who they're after. I had an email come in one time that said, "Hey, I've read these testimonies up on your website. I'm having these experiences. Can you help me?" Wow. And I thought, oh, that's a game changer. Do we go there? Or how do I answer that? So the best I could do at the time to answer him was, I said, I think we can help you. I think if you look at the testimonies and the way that they were helped, that you too can be helped in that manner. I mean, I wasn't into being a ministry or anything at that time, and so I wasn't sure how to handle that. So lo and behold, I get testimonies like this that people say, I too did that. Okay. So what are we saying here? What we're saying is we not only have an answer, but this answer is repeatable.
Sure.
There's nothing else in ufology that we have found that's repeatable.
Wow. That's
until
huge.
we get to the CE5. Yeah.
Dang, that's huge. And I think, doesn't Greer accredit some kind of channeling or download or communication from the entities that led him into this CE5 process? He didn't come up with it himself.
No.
I'm pretty sure he says that it was given to him.
Yeah. And then you got David Bledsoe. David Bledsoe, is that his name?
Ryan Bledsoe, Chris Bledsoe. I was just going to ask. It's on my notes. That was the next question.
Bledsoe, he's in contact with that female entity, and he calls in the orbs, kind of pretty much doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but he claims to be a Christian, but you don't hear any scripture out of him, and
Yeah, I think it's more of they're a very interesting bunch. If you guys look into the Bledsoes, the stuff they do, I mean, listen, it seems like they were chosen for a purpose, the same way God chooses people for purposes, I believe, so does the enemy, right? He reveals things to certain people.
Most of your abduction experiencers that get sold out to the experience have been told that by the entities. You were chosen for this.
Wow.
You were chosen to be emissaries for us on this planet. They're to help usher in the new age.
Oh yeah. Do you think what that does? Think what that does to you.
Oh yeah.
So, just put yourself in these people's shoes for a second, right? You're just Joe Schmo. I don't know. You're watching TV or something, or you're in your backyard barbecuing. It's nighttime, and something appears to you, and it's telling you you're special. You've been chosen. You're like, what the heck is this thing? Chosen for what? It would blow your mind. It would take you over. It would be your whole identity. It's all you'd ever think about. I'm the one. Like you're the Neo. You're the Jesus. You're the chosen one. You know what I mean? It would completely change your life. The same way, I'm not saying it's a 1-for-1, but just the analogy. The same way Paul has an encounter with an entity that appears to him and says, hey, stop doing what you're doing. I'm Jesus. You're going to follow me from now on, right? Completely changed his life all the way to where he goes and dies, right?
Yep.
That's probably a similar sentiment that these guys are having. It's going to change their life forever.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter if you deny it. It doesn't matter if you're like, hey, this is bad. They're chosen. They're chosen. If anything, we might be seen as enemies.
Yes. And it's not even that you're going as far as them telling you you're chosen. Just the idea that you've now have a special knowledge that other people don't have.
Oh, sure.
And the whole concept of special knowledge, that's right out of the garden. That's what enticed them, was the opportunity for special knowledge. And that's the same thing that's being offered today. This whole idea that they can give you a high technology, that's a special knowledge. And that's what people are begging for, and that's what they're wanting.
Yeah. I mean, it's the Gnostics, right? It was just hidden knowledge, and that's what they were all about. And these guys with the Bledsoes in particular, they have a particular, they call her the lady, okay? Yeah. And it's a female entity that appears to them. And I believe in one of the things I've seen, she calls herself Hathor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And if you just look it up, Hathor was like an ancient Egyptian goddess. Wow. So she's literally manifesting to them and is like, hey, I'm the goddess from ancient Egypt. And their logos, their symbology, the Bledsoes and stuff, their podcast, it's pyramids, it's all the symbology from ancient times, Yeah. So what more do we need as Christians than to realize, like, hey, there's an ongoing connection here from ancient times with these beings, with these entities, okay? And it was all malevolent then. It was all pagan. It was all evil, occultic. And now these same things are appearing to people today who have like video cameras and on our social media and podcasts. And they're like, yeah, so Hathor appeared to me. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Like, how long does it take for us, or will it take for it to click for Christians to where they're like, oh, okay, this is spiritual warfare? You know, how long until a pastor goes up on stage at church and is like, hey, so we're going to discuss spiritual warfare today. So aliens are appearing to people and they're abducting them. And you know what I mean? Like, that would be an incredible day in the Christian community when we start approaching spiritual warfare from this angle.
Yes.